I actually, Richard, one of the things that you don't know about me is I used to look at successful people when I was young and think I can do that better. I was competing against myself in that I don't want to give up. I have to be persistent. I have to keep turning up. I have to achieve this. I have to work hard. I have to deliver this assignment. I have to learn this course. I have to, and it was more me versus me. You're crazy. Nobody in my family's ever been to university. No Doherty ever has been in a third level education. We don't do that. That's for the middle class.
At that time, when you're stood there in that situation, you're seeing them taking these
Mm.
cars around a low loader, or you're having to move the family that, you know, going back to you've got your child born, I have to, I have to grow up now, I have to provide,
Yeah.
and the house you provided for your family being taken away.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you the real, the honest truth?
Gary Doherty, a young entrepreneur story of somebody from a young age who built up a property empire, felt they were at the top of their game, had it all, went and then bought an estate agency to continue to boost and build their property empire, and then the credit crunch hits and you lose it all, and you're stood on your front lawn watching your cars being lifted onto low loaders and taken away, your house being repossessed, and you're left with nothing. How did he feel about that? What drives him to carry on and start again? This is Gary Doherty's story. My name is Richard Osborne, and this is Drive, the small business podcast from UKBF. So, getting started. Gary, hello.
Hello.
So, just I'd like to get an understanding of what sparked your interest in business and sort of where that stems from, because sometimes when talking to people, they will turn around and quote something from their childhood, or something they're trying to sort of dig out of. But I imagine you started somewhere after that, because you had a stable upbringing, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. I had a very normal upbringing, stable upbringing. Sister, mother, father, both worked, 9 to 5. Nothing dramatic happening, thank God, and so on and so forth. I suppose when my mind started to open up, that led me into business was when I became a father. Was when
Yeah.
was when I became a father, and I'm going to say probably grew up overnight, and I started to think that I need to. At that stage, I wasn't thinking business, but what I was thinking was I need to maximize my potential, uh, in terms of earning potential to provide for a family. So, because I had been brought up from a father who's very hard working, that said, get a job, X amount of pounds, stay in it for life, and provide for your family. So I started to think I need to start doing this, and that was when my mind opened up, which actually led me to
Right.
business. So it was really then. But what actually led me to business was more working in retail and meeting people like property investors, entrepreneurs, local business owners, and that's where it actually sort of started to materialize. If that makes sense.
That that intrigued me when I read that, because you was a sales manager in a retail store, sort of selling sort of the white kitchen goods and sort of
Yeah.
utilities like that, and you met somebody who ran an estate agency. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I met him. He was in and out regularly buying white goods for rental properties and so on and so forth. And at that time, it was about 2006-ish, 2005, 2004 maybe at that time. And the property boom, if you can recall, at that stage, the property
Yeah.
was through the roof, and there was 100% mortgages, and banks were throwing money, and properties were flipping and turning over and making a lot of money. And as I said, my mind had been triggered to maximize my potential before that. And when I started to see, I suppose subconsciously I was open to opportunity. And then when I
Yeah.
started to see this property game, and I started to see it seemed like little risk. Sure, you're getting 100% of, you can get 100% mortgage, Gary, for a house that's going to be worth 50K more in 6 months. Right? Okay. Why is everybody not doing this? And
So this
you
So
know.
the guy you met when he was doing this, presumably he was dealing with rental property
Yeah,
and buying products
yeah,
and sort of, that would furnish that property, and you obviously built up a relationship with this guy.
yeah,
I'm interpreting from what you're saying that he was sort of sharing like what's going on, and
yeah,
literally
yeah,
this is like a gold mine kind of environment
yeah,
where people are making a lot of money. Then
yeah,
the I mean, I remember, we all remember that time you'd buy a house, you'd live in there for a couple of years, and all of a sudden you'd made tens of thousands of pounds that you put down, and people were moving through there. Um, we can move on to what come next, but how the I'm in my mind's eye, I'm picturing a guy who's really almost like Wolf of Wall Street kind of thing, sort of like really sending this sort of like amazing wealth vision.
yeah.
Is that a pretty accurate picture?
Semi, yeah. It's like very quickly. I had bought my own house a year prior to that. I had bought my first home, and I had aspirations to move to a bigger and better and nicer and fresher and newer property. So I suppose that all materialized at that time when I was in that mindset to move up the property ladder again. As I was moving up the property ladder, I was also acquiring buy lets. So I was
Yeah.
sort of growing in the two areas at the same time, and yeah, I was very very hungry for that. Within 36 months, acquired. I had a partner then came on board after a few, but after about 36 months, we maybe had 30 plus properties.
Wow, so that's a pretty rapid growth at that point.
Mm,
And to coin a phrase, you'd become a property entrepreneur in your own right at
yeah,
there,
yeah,
and you bought the estate agency from this guy.
yeah, 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 yeah. And looking back, it was no regrets, but it was a bad decision, of course, bad business decision. But it ultimately led to better things for me and a better place and a better outlook in life and a better comeback and so on and so forth. So it was all for a reason. However, looking at that decision singularly, it was a poor business decision because that nothing lasts forever. Everything has a
Yeah,
cycle. That now we know these things. Even life is a cycle. We come and we go, and nobody could see when the property was going to go off the edge of the cliff and go this way. So, but the guy we're talking about intuitively must have seen his sales dropping and seen different signs and decided to get out, which was quite clever. And I decided to get in, which wasn't so clever. Uh, and but it is what it is. I don't no regrets.
no, but if we talk about that sort of period of time and sort of picture sort of what the environment was like,
Mm,
so you'd obviously met this guy, had an opportunity present itself for you, you'd become a property investor.
mhm,
The I imagine, so sort of fill in the gaps.
mm,
Uh, that what that environment was like at the time, particularly with 100% mortgages,
mm.
you must have been mortgaged to the hill, and sort of expanding and expanding these properties at that, your portfolio at that time. Is that an accurate picture? Just to sort of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
fleet forward.
it started off 100% mortgages, but then obviously when we had equity in properties, we were able to flip property. We flipped some properties. We had cash deposits. Then we had 80% mortgages, and so on and so forth. So our property portfolio was reasonably, it was healthy enough. It was healthy
Yeah,
enough. There was probably like in excess of £1 million equity
yeah.
in the properties on the current valuations, and so it was okay. It was okay. It was doing well. In hindsight, we grew too quick, had too much risk, and it was mortgaged too much. But then you say it was mortgaged too much. But if it doesn't go off the end of the cliff, then you're not.
No. So what was your life like at that point in time when you're looking? You mentioned a few moments ago that you become a dad. You're um, it's a light bulb moment's gone on. You're sort of looking to provide. It's something I can relate to. My children are 17 and 20 now, so they. But I remember my first child, my daughter, being born, and at that point, the I just remember the burden I felt on my own shoulders that I've got a responsibility. I've got to provide. I am the provider here, so I can sort of relate to that feeling at that point. Your portfolio is growing. You're amassing this wealth. What is your life like at that precise moment of time?
My life at that time was quite. In the moment, it felt
Yeah,
like everything I touched turned to gold. It felt like everything was there was no end to this. It was like this is infinity. Like you've made it type of thing, and that artificial. It was an artificial. When I look back, it was a very artificial bubble that I was in. But I didn't know that then, of course. But I look back, it was temporary, it was artificial, it wasn't forever, it wasn't the norm, it wasn't normal life, it was a freak time for the industry, and I was in the middle of that freak, bubble, and so life, you could do what you want when you want, have what you want when you want, and when you're younger, and that's what you've been striving for, and then you're experiencing it. I didn't make great choices. I wasn't the best version of me. I don't believe I was. I probably developed a bit of chip on my shoulder. I didn't need help. I didn't need advice. I knew best. I was the creator of this magic when really I wasn't. I was a passenger in an opportunity. And I don't know, just ego run away, on I don't know. I was young and immature and not ready, not prepared for it, maybe emotionally or mentally. And I wasn't the best version of myself. I wasn't the worst version, but I wasn't the best version. And a lot of mistakes were made, things bought, money spent, relationships not nurtured, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's a funny time in my life, that, Richard, because there was so much good in terms of breakthroughs and excitement and new opportunity and freedom of choices and so on. But I suppose mentally and emotionally, it was arguably the worst time in my life.
yeah. The what, two questions really. I'll start with one. So when you say relationships not nurtured,
Hmm.
I'm making the assumption here family.
Uh, not, yeah, yes, I would say family impacted, but I'm talking
Yeah,
about just generally speaking. Just generally speaking, I wouldn't have been listening to friends for advice the way I would now. I wouldn't have valued a mentor the way I do now.
yeah,
I wouldn't have um, looked at it, benchmarked against anybody, or been motivated and inspired by anybody. I was the guy that was making all this magic happen. When, as I say, I wasn't. But in my mind, I was this sort of maverick that everything I touched turned to gold, and so I suppose I just wasn't a good person in any. I was a good person, but not fantastic at maintaining my friendships and things like that, because I was so driven, so solo, so my own man. I'm on this journey. I'm relentless. And when you
yeah,
don't take time to have the coffee with a friend you went to school with, you don't take time to jump on a call with a friend that you really value. You don't take time to ask other people, are they okay, and what can you do for them. I wasn't enriching in other people's lives the same as I do now.
So you've reached that stage.
Yeah.
You've amassed this wealth. You've got this lifestyle. You hindsight's a wonderful thing, and you say in hindsight, perhaps buying the estate agency wasn't the
Yeah.
best maneuver, but you acquired another business as well. So you've literally expanding your empire,
Mm.
and then a period of time which we all remember hit, where the credit crunch hit, lots of toxic debt, crashed the economy. Um, what happened for you?
I was spending money like nobody's business. It was always, I had to have the next deal to top up positive cash flow that wasn't tied up in property. So I was spending frivolously all the time. And when you're not liquid cash rich for a rainy day, when that day comes and then you have to move a property on to raise money, but yet that property's dropped in value and it's now in negative equity, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
Then multiply that by 30 odd properties, you have a big problem. And that's where I found myself. And the next deal's not coming. The next deal's not coming. The tap's off, and you haven't accumulated any savings, you haven't invested, you haven't spent wisely, you haven't multiple streams of income, which we all know to be so important now. And so, yeah, it was just a time where the best way I could describe it to you is the switch went off, the tap turned off, the well was dry, and it was a case of damage limitation at that stage.
And what did that look like, damage limitation?
Damage limitation looked like, firstly, asking for help that I hadn't
Yeah.
asked for, as I said, I knew everything. I knew best, of course. When you're doing so well, why do you need to ask for help? You should, you are the help. And so I went back to my father. What will I do? And we went to an insolvency solicitor, and we looked at everything and looked at the landscape and decided that was the best course of action. So we went through an insolvency procedure, in which materialized in August 2009, and that materialized in uh, properties going back to the lenders. It materialized in my own home being taken off me. It materialized in 3, 4 cars in the driveway being taken away in low loaders. It materialized in entering into X, Y, and Z agreement in the attempt to pay, you know, some money off and hold on to some things, but ultimately everything went. Everything went in the end up. But I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did. I'm glad it did.
The At that time, when you're stood there in that situation, you're seeing them taking these
Mm,
cars around a low loader, or you're having to move the family that, you know, going back to, you've got your child born, I have to, I have to grow up now, I have to provide,
yeah,
and the house you provided for your family being taken away.
yeah.
The What did that feel like at that moment in time? Where was your mindset?
Do you want me to tell you the honest truth?
Yeah,
Relief.
yeah,
Relief. Because it was at that point, Richard, I realised the falseness and the artificial nature of what I had accumulated. It wasn't forever. It couldn't be. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't reoccurring, sustainable income over time. I hadn't developed a business model like that. I was leveraging debt and banks' money left, right, and centre. And it wasn't, I hadn't the ability or the knowledge or the wisdom to use the money I made to create a space where I actually had real money and not debt I was leveraging left, right, and centre. So I had the ability to make money, but not use it wisely. So I felt relief was the first feeling, and the
Do you
second one,
think, if you, when you say relief,
yeah,
the do you think then that perhaps whilst you was on this journey previously, whether you felt it consciously or subconsciously, out of debt, out of your depth, to then have that feeling of relief afterwards, that the pressure that you may have not even realised you was feeling beforehand, you were now
mm,
having lifted from you?
don't think out of depth wouldn't be the right thing. I think the terminology would be more about my own self worth.
Yeah.
Didn't feel worthy of maybe the success. You know,
Okay.
maybe like a self image issue, where not about out of my depth. I felt very much like, as I said, I felt I belonged there. I actually, Richard, one of the things that you don't know about me is I used to look at successful people when I was young and think I can do that better.
Right.
I used to see very successful people doing things, and it wasn't an ego thing at that age. It was just like, I can't believe they're so successful. Like, if I had that business, I would be doing this better and that better, and I would always see things more, inefficiencies, and think I can do that much better. I know I can. So I felt I belonged at that success, or in terms of my ability, let's say. But and in terms of actually the relief, it was more maybe about a poor self-image, which goes deeper and goes into childhood, and it goes, even though I had a normal childhood, it wouldn't have been one with a high level of emotional intelligence, let's say. There wouldn't have been too many pats in the back. There wouldn't have been too many instances of instilling belief in you. So it was more that I was learning to believe in myself on the go, and at that moment, I still was on a journey of personal development, and I think it was a relief in that I knew I still had a lot of work to do on me as a person, as a human being.
Okay, that's very self-aware.
Yeah.
To put
So
point.
that's where I was.
The So when you're having these taken away,
Mm.
um, you got some advice from your father-in-law.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some man. He's no longer with us, but he'll always be with us. You know,
Right.
he said to me, Gary, you have two choices. You can either basically sink or swim. You can squander the rest of your life, turn to drink and whatever. He said, or you can get he said the one thing that you're lacking is an education. He said, an education is what you're lacking. An education on its own isn't all the answers. But when you have the ability, and you have that entrepreneurial spirit, and you have that purpose, and you have that family, and you have everything to do for it, that's the one thing that you're actually missing, is those ticking those boxes academically, which will give you confidence, will give you the understanding of the rationale behind some of the decisions that you're intuitively making. And when he said it originally, I thought, you're mad. You're crazy. Nobody in my family's ever been to university. No Doherty ever has been in a third level education. We don't do that. That's for the middle class. And I had a stereotype in my head because I had no pathway, Richard. Nobody had done it before. Nobody had done it before. So when he planted that seed with me, I was like, you're mad, crazy. But he planted the seed with me, and it grew.
So what changed then? At what point did it turn from you're mad to actually, do you know what, I'm going to do this?
Very quickly. Very quickly. He said that to me in the August, and I can tell you in the September, I enrolled for a business degree as a mature student part time, and no, a mature student full time. And so very quickly, within a matter of weeks, because what I did, unbeknownst to him, was when he planted that seed, I slept on it. Maybe within 48 hours, I started to think, okay, let's gently explore this and see. So I rang for a prospectus on degrees. At that time, they posted me out the hard copy of all the different things they offered. I then said, well, listen, if I was to do that, how would it be funded? Because remember, I've lost everything. And then there was funding options. So then the more I investigated and explored, Richard, the more the door opened.
And the pathway opened in front of you, and you did study. So how did that change? You know, what were your next sort of few years like? Your sort of journey then?
Yeah, my journey there for the next 5 years, it turns out, by the way, 5 years, approximately just under five, I became obsessed. Like everything that I do in life that I'm all in with and I truly believe in, I wanted to achieve at university like my life depended on it. And there's a reason for that, because it did. In my mind, my life did. My family's life did depend on me succeeding at university. So I was the least academic person in the room, full of all these super duper, people that were super clever, and I was. But guess what? I was the hardest working. I was there early. I stayed late. I worked like an animal, because I wanted it like nobody else in that room.
Yeah.
Honestly, I did,
And
and I achieved it.
do you think that is quite a common sort of environment for somebody who comes from you said you had this stereotype, this perception between sort of middle class and sort of working
Yeah.
class, and if you've got if whichever path you've taken, where the journey's taken you to a point where you're competing against people who you have this perception who have just they're easier, you have to fight harder.
Mm. What do you mean? What?
I'm just trying to. You hear a lot about it, whether it can be from minority groups, underprivileged, women in business, which I know is something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, yeah,
So when
yeah,
you've got groups of people who are in an environment where the typically are not in. So it could be within a boardroom environment, it could be within going into a workplace environment, or in your case, going into a university where nobody in your family's gone to before. So you've not
yeah,
had that pathway in front of you. You instinctively feel that you've got to fight harder and push yourself harder in that environment to keep up or compete. Do you think there's
yeah.
part of that?
Not in my instance, but I take your point. I'll tell you what I now realize to be what it actually is. I'm one of those people that that I never ever was competing against anybody in that room. I was competing against myself, right? I was competing against myself in that I don't want to give up. I have to be persistent. I have to keep turning up. I have to achieve this. I have to work hard. I have to deliver this assignment. I have to learn this course. I have to, and it was more me versus me. There might have been a slight chip on my shoulder in terms of the ageist thing because I would have been the oldest person in the room and all that, and I was like maybe there's a small element of I'll show them, that type of thing. There might be a small element of that, but in what I know now from my own journey is one of the traits of highly successful people, right? And my self worth, as you'll get from my conversation and my language now, is what it should be. I've worked so hard on my own self image and my own self worth and what I deserve to achieve in life and all the rest of it. And I am a successful person, as are you, and anybody listening to this. Success is within you. It's a choice you make in your own self. And I realize that very successful people are they've got a stickability, they've got a persistence, they've got a drive. They become obsessed somewhat with what they're doing. They're very, very focused, very disciplined. When there's something's got their attention that they know that is for them and it's part of their purpose and their mission and vision in life, they give it a lot of attention and a lot of energy. And that's what I was intuitively doing then and subconsciously doing then. I was showing a trait of a person that can and will and does and is achieving success in life because I've interviewed so many successful people since then. So I happen to know that without a shadow of a doubt that is one of the traits of people that achieve success in life.
Absolutely.
That's what I was doing then intuitively.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you've meant you spoke to people. We both spoke to people who have these sort of journeys or whatever they're going on. They get a bit
Yeah.
in their teeth, and they almost tenaciously will go at something because it's to almost sort of quote you from earlier. It's almost like their life depends on it. They're going for it. They
Because it does.
yeah
Because it does.
yeah
My life depends on this, Richard. Even today, and we've achieved X, Y, and Z over the last while. And my life's I approach everything like my life depends on it. I was up at silly o'clock this morning UK time on a Zoom to Australia to a potential client. Because my life depends on it.
yeah.
It does. I didn't come this far to only come this far. I came this far to keep going.
And what did
You
when
know?
you went through that course, which you said was 5 years? What did that
Yeah.
open up, and what for the next stages? Because well, in fact, to lead to what you're doing now.
Didn't really lead to what I'm doing now, but I'll tell you what it did do. It fulfilled me as a man. It was part of my personal development journey more than my entrepreneurial journey. It gave me fulfillment, joy, satisfaction, belief. It showed me anything was pretty much anything's possible, bar learning to fly rockets to the moon. It showed me that it gave me belief. It gave me a mindset and a belief system that I take into other walks of life. That's what it gave me. Not I don't remember one single module that I did really and what I learned from it. Believe it or not. But it's more what it done for me personally. It was part of my personal development journey. That's the biggest thing I could tell you. It just made me. Like I still have the certificates. I have them up here in the wall today. I have one down there that's not on a wall yet in a new office that I'm in, and it just I look at them and it's just a reminder to me that anything's possible, and I take that into different walks of life now. So that's what it more did for me than anything, to be honest.
I'm
Other
taking
people
that.
might.
So I'm taking that as the 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 success and win you needed.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. I'm one of those people, Richard. I need, not even need, I want to be progressing all the time. I'm a lifelong learner. That's one of the things I've always been interested in the next thing, in the new thing. Even when lockdown happened, I did a Zoom crash course in the first week to learn how to do webinars and things very quickly. And then I did, and then people were paying me to show them. It was crazy. But I've always had that inquisitive mindset. Even when you were on Twitter talking about this, I reached out to you.
Yeah.
So it's that I've always had that. What's that? Could I add value there? And you never know who would listen to this that I would then connect with or help or support. And that mindset has served me well.
Uh, and the coming out of the course, you took a
Mm.
took a job working like an employed job before you
Yeah,
then set up Think Network.
yeah,
I'm going to jump that part for a minute because one of the things really intrigued me, and I know I'm
yeah.
jumping ahead, but it's
You're
what
okay.
when I look at some of the things that you've done with Think Network, if you've sort of looked and followed some, you mentioned my Twitter is I'm
Mm.
devotedly passionate about supporting young people, um, particularly ones who are disengaged, ones who are going through various difficulties, not engaging in education, maybe sort of falling through the cracks. And just from my own personal experience, how business can help them get on the right track. So you have organisations like Prince's Trust, which is fantastic, but
Yeah.
you set up a TEDx studio working with and supporting young enterprise within that as well, which really jumped out at me. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, Young Enterprise in Northern Ireland are quite predominant in their work in schools and helping people, when they're entrepreneurial, planting the entrepreneurial seeds early in
Yeah,
education, and that interested me. And at that time, I was doing a qualification that lent into that at university. So I actually considered strongly about going into teaching and actually teaching entrepreneurship and teaching business. And my degree and master's allowed me to do that. So I did a teaching qualification, which I still have, and I still could go and do this. But what I realised was I didn't want to be in that 9 to 5 role doing it. I wanted more freedom and creativity. But anyway, that's a side thing. Well, I found myself volunteering with Young Enterprise in the local schools,
yeah,
helping them with entrepreneurial projects, taking concept to product and then selling it. And I got great satisfaction out of doing that, and I did that for a few years. I would go in once a week and talk to their GCSE and A levels. Well, it was A level students actually, and then work with them on doing this. And I did that, and we achieved some success, and it was great. Um, so that was my first experience of Young Enterprise. But coincidentally, I would way after that, I would become involved with the TED platform, and we came back together again.
yeah,
And I created a environment where we had a TEDx youth event that Young Enterprise sponsored and also helped in the lead up and the preparation of the students being coached and being ready and being prepared and their message and idea for the world. And then we had an event in the middle of lockdown when nobody said we could have it. We had it in a hybrid event in a studio that was live streamed with a socially distanced crowd and all this crazy stuff. But I was determined to have it and let the opportunity pass. And we did. It was very successful. We created 19 teenage TED speakers from my own city from the first time in history. First time ever. The second time in the island of Ireland. The first time in Northern Ireland's history. And with all the TED achievements I've had, and I've had many, and still have to this day, that's probably my proudest.
Yeah. No, it's one that stood out as I was as I was sort of obviously preparing for today.
Yeah.
And obviously that come through, and you have Think Network. What was the purpose behind that? So what led you to then effectively go back into running your own organisation, and the motivation behind doing Think Network?
Yeah, it's interesting you ask that because it was about 9, 10 years later, and I suppose I needed that time to heal from the burning of the business and the perceived failure and the loss, and it felt like a bereavement almost. When you lose that significant part of your life, and even though you were relieved at the time, it was still a something to heal from. So I suppose that journey of through education and being in 9 to 5 corporate jobs, different things I was doing, that was a period of healing for me. That was a period of recalibrating, and the entrepreneurial spirit never died in me, but was never great enough to actually go into business or act on it. But time heals
Yeah.
most things, or it certainly dulls the pain on most things. He, and I got to a stage I remember well, and I said this in a video that I've recorded to go out on my social media soon. I remember sitting on my sofa in a house, and I had a phone with me. My grandson runs it. Well, there it is. There, he's put it back in. Actually, very good. It's a phone I had, and I don't know if you can see this, but it's a broken screen, a cracked screen at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on this phone, and I had no credit on it, and I was getting Wi-Fi, and I started to be on my phone thinking, there has to be more to life than this. Gary, you've more to offer life than this. The same feelings I was thinking way back started to resurface. I can do more, be more. What about your potential? You have so much more to give. You have. I was nearly playing it safe for too long again, if that makes sense. I was working to get a wage because before there was so much uncertainty, and then you had no money and it dried up. So I was starting to, the timing was right for me again and all the rest of it. And I started to think, what is it? I started to think about what I wanted. And I wanted more to be around more like-minded people. I wanted to be elevated and supported by other people. I wanted an environment where other people could be elevated and supported by other people. I wanted to go to a motivational speaking event. And whilst that's relatively normal now, it wasn't then. When I googled that, there was none in Northern Ireland, ever, hardly. People did wee workshops here and there, but nothing like a Tony Robbins event or something that I had in my head. So I thought, I'm going to do this. And I started to think about my network, and that's where Think Network came up. I wanted people to think about the people that are of influence around them. Are they the right people? Are they people that are adding value to your life? Are they people that are lifting you? Are they people that are supporting you? Because they should be. And I started to create environments where those types of people came together, and we had motivational and inspirational speaking events. And that's how the ball started to roll. That's how it rolled, and that was about 4 years ago.
And you've focused in particular, so we touched on it earlier, you focused on particular areas as well, which you're quite passionate about. So we mentioned sort of women in business, and you've used your network to elevate women within the business environment as well.
Yeah, well, that grew into that more when when I had more of a platform to be able to do that. At the start, it was themed events like resilience.
Yeah.
It was very much what I wanted, what I needed.
Yeah.
I was providing for myself and for other people then, and it sort of grew. It grew out of necessity and out of, it's what I wanted to see in the world.
I love that because that is exactly how UK Business Forum started. If I go back
Hmm.
to February 2003, I was sat in a kitchen on a little kitchen table that was probably no bigger than this, a little two up, two down in Luton. I was living and I had a toddler daughter, and I was just like, what am I doing? Literally, I'm like so hand to mouth. I'm trying to keep the business going and going.
Yeah,
I've got a child. Um, my wife's supporting me being a business owner, and shit, have I made the right decision here? Do I need to get a job or something? Because and I had nobody around me to talk, so I just put up this website, just an online forum, because that's what things were. You know, we didn't have the social media back then that we do now. And suddenly there was hundreds, then there were thousands, then there were tens of thousands of people who were all in the same boat. And
hmm,
for me, I just put it online back then, but creating an environment that started because of how I felt and how what I needed, and exactly
yeah,
as you say there, as soon as you reach out, as soon as you start talking, sort of having I'd almost say being brave enough to go out and just say me, um, you find there are so many other people that are in that same situation, and when you can come together and support each other, exactly as you describe in there, it's
yeah.
fantastic.
And when you're doing things like that, Richard, when you're doing it with so much passion and love and vigor,
Yeah.
because this is coming from deep inside you to do it. So you're not doing it just like another, like an income stream. Like, say for example, like, that you've just decided to endeavor into. This is like something you're really passionate about. Your purpose. You find your purpose and your calling, and then when you can monetize that, you're not living your dream. You're living your reality.
Yeah.
You're living your dream and your reality at the one time, and that's where I find myself on today.
Yeah. And so as continues from there, where are things now for you?
Well, where things now are, we have the business has evolved. We have many products, services, and offerings. We started off as a free event with 21 people that turned up. Now we still do sporadic events, but they're more just feel good PR relevancy sort of events. It's like I do them to be still seen and heard myself. Whereas before they were part of the business model. I don't do them to make money now. We do them to serve and to add value in our country, and we do them two, three, four times a year. Um, but the business very quickly evolved into the ambitious people, or the people that wanted to grow and develop, wanted to be seen and heard, and we developed a PR company to help them be seen and heard. And now I put ambitious individuals, quite often with a purpose bigger than self, greater than self, like myself, into global media publications on a monthly basis. And we're growing at a rapid rate, thank God.
Okay. And um, and this is more for you, so where are you heading? What's the destination for you?
Good question. Good question. I don't even know.
No.
I don't even know, and I don't want to know. Where's the fun in that? I want to grow my business to a level where I am providing a high level service globally to hundreds and hundreds of people. I am providing employment and opportunity for my family. I'm creating generational wealth for my family and my clients, and that I can exit my business with a freedom of choices for the rest of my life in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
That's, but where that is, what that is, for me, Richard, I'll never stop. It's what will I be doing is the question.
Yeah. Uh,
So
so if you reach that point, I think you probably just somewhat answered that my next question there, and really, which the question is, when will you know you've made it? And
uh, goodness, that's a good question, and I'm I'm not sure I ever want to know. I'm not sure I ever want to feel like I've made it.
No.
I'm a guy that needs to live like my life depends on it. And when you feel you've made it, you've lost that, like my life depends on it attitude. And, that's what gets me through life. That's what propels me through life, is that that ambition to do more, be more, improve, and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure I ever want to reach that point, if I'm really, really, really honest. And some people may find that quite sad, but it's the truth. It's the truth. And a lot of people I talk to are similar. It's like, I'm here to make a difference in life to other people, my family, and myself. And I never want to feel like I truly made it, like I falsely believed back in the day.
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
do.
Maybe that's got something to do with my mindset. I felt I had made it then, and look what happened.
It's
You know,
the reality of, if it's not sustainable or done right, it can all be taken away. Last question I asked then is, in years to come, when people look back at Gary, how would you want people to remember you?
to tell you the truth, the only people I care about remembering me is my family, and fondly.
No?
And that's not being disrespectful to people, the public, or people like yourself, or anybody like that. What I really want, and this is part of my why in life, and I'll give you an insight into me. I want my family to be proud of me forever, and and even children to come that I'll never meet, my children's children's children. They'd be able to Google, they'd be able to go on YouTube and see the viral talks and the successes and the achievements and the accolades and the businessman of the year accolade above me in the middle, the wee bowl, and I want them to go, that was my granda. He was some man. He changed the face of business in our family. He rose to the height at university in our family, the only guy to ever do it before or since. I want them to be proud of me forever. I want to have people proud of me forever.
But
And
every confidence your family will be. That's good.
so that's what I want, Richard. I'm not really. I want to have good relationships with people like yourself and people listening to this, but the people that I care about what they actually think of me forever is my loved ones.
Uh, that's, they will be. No, that's great. Thank you very much again.
Yeah.
It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you, and thank you. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed watching this interview. Please remember to hit subscribe and like. It really helps us with the algorithms for YouTube, and I'll look forward to bringing you more interviews in the next episode of Drive, the small business podcast from UKBF.